Hello and welcome to this probably very long video. Well, I played through a game and thought, why not make a video about the entire game? So we're starting at the start, going through it step by step, and I'm just explaining things that I did and also that I enjoyed and didn't enjoy. So if you don't enjoy this long form type of content, let me know in the comments down below and I will do less of it. Let's start with the game itself. Lost Ruins, released back in May 2021, and it was a Kickstarter, which I didn't even realize after researching a little bit for this video. It was financed by 1,427 people and reached close to 5 million yen out of the roughly 1 million yen that the developer or, the people behind the project wanted to actually make this a reality. And I'm actually more shocked that they made this game with like 45, maybe 60,000. Maybe they got more from the publisher. Who knows? It's pretty darn good. Okay, let's back off a little bit. I'm jumping a little bit ahead of myself. Let's start with Act 1, or how I called it, the learning phase. So if we jump into the game, it instantly gives you a message of Lost Ruins is designed as a survival experience that requires the player to approach situations carefully, make good use of items, react accordingly, and you're sure to succeed. I think I took this a little bit too seriously because I instantly thought, oh no, weapons and items and everything is gonna be scarce, like extremely scarce. That's not the case, to be honest. So I became a hoarder in this game and I ended the game with way too much money, way too many items that I never used. And, sometimes you also don't want to use some items. Some items you just like, no. So having chosen the recommended difficulty, we jump straight in and you already realize a huge difference in this game compared to others, The lighting is different, there are some effects already on screen. It's definitely a 2D game as you realize, you can dodge roll, we can run around, and you also realize we get introduced to the heroine, So instantly the game tells us, okay, this is the hero of the story, right, that we're playing, like straight out of the gate. Some games are more like, who are you, right? You have to find yourself in the world. No, this game is like, you're the hero, let's go. That's fine. Now, 2 seconds later, we meet Beatrice, a red-haired elven woman that tells us, well, you lost your memory. You have to find your memories, and to unlock those memories back or get them back, you have to kill the guardians of the Dark Lady. She sealed your memories. And I'm like, all right, cool, just killing some mobs. I can do that. I'm used to this. I'm a Path of Exile gamer. I have played a video game. I know what to do. She also mentioned something about like another world and some isekai stuff. Okay, I guess, we're gonna trust her for now, right? Because what else should we do, right? She tells us she instantly appeared. All right, well, I'm gonna go with it. Now going through some areas and instantly realizing, oh, there are portals, so there's, fast traveling in the game. Pretty nice, pretty cool. We also get a smartphone message. These messages sometimes pop up. They're from a variety of people. It's kind of like a way for the game to tell you the lore, and we instantly hit our first enemy. Well, literally, we hit it with a sword, we bonk it. Right? Not that difficult, to be honest. I definitely felt a little bit on the edge because it didn't really have knockback, so I was like, oh, okay, I gotta be a little bit careful. And moving forward, we also find a toilet paper, or, we picked it up and we were like, okay, what is this? So there are status effects like bleeding, so you have to manually stop it if you wanted to. It does have some sort of timer, so for example, if you're like, no, I don't want to bleed anymore, you can just instantly stop it, or you just wait. But this game doesn't have health regen. It also doesn't have mana regen, unless you use items to give you that. Either way, moving on, there are of course traps that I kind of tested out and played around with it and activated it. So yep, traps are a thing, gotta be careful. Then moving forward, a couple more enemies later, we also get a wing shoes, which allow us to kind of hover in the air when hitting stuff. Jumping and hitting stuff is very common. I think also in Castlevania games that allows you to, I think, push out, like kind of a little bit of an animation canceling. Pretty nice. I think I didn't really use them anymore because for now we only have one slot at the top left, you can see. So gotta be careful there. Moving on, another trap that I barely avoided, the quick gamer skills, quick gamer reactions. Moving forward, we have an autosave, which is very helpful, so the game isn't completely unfair or extremely difficult, so it definitely helps you out with saves and autosaves and everything. So pretty nice. Killing a mob, it also drops like a little red orb that gives us some health. then we also sometimes come across, a table like previously, or maybe some sort of like furniture that has items on it, so we can just pick those up. We, for example, get our lovely Firebolt now, and that is our first ranged ability, or ranged magic attack, technically, because it's not an ability, it does cost us mana. And as mentioned before, we don't have mana regen. So if your mana is not enough, you can't just wait 5 seconds and have mana again, like in most games. That's not the case here. Like, you either use it or you don't, and you have to be you need to actively think about it and be like, okay, do I want to use this now? What if I don't have mana later? So, gotta be careful. Moving forward, we came across some poison on the ground. And yes, that is, I think, where the game really shines. So certain abilities and things can interact with each other. And I find that so bloody cool in games. And I barely see it. Maybe it's because I don't play those games or don't search for those games. But just seeing something on the ground that could ignite, and I can ignite it to then maybe go through a puzzle, deal more damage to enemies, crowd controlling potentially some enemies. Just top tier gameplay. Love it. Moving past the fire and grabbing some more loot, and having gained the knowledge that, there is this thing in the game, my guess was, well, how many other things are there? What about ice? What about lightning and water, right? Stuff like this. I haven't explored everything, to be honest, in the game, so you have a little bit more to explore for yourself. I also didn't really need more, and this is where the whole thing of I thought I need to hoard everything, which wasn't necessary. Either way, we met Beatrice again. I think she talks about some, do you feel... Like, apparently we have now a new sense to know where the Dark Lady is, or something along those lines, apparently. Or, the little guys that help the Dark Lady that we need to kill. Either way, moving on, we now know it's in the canals. So that is in the next area, and we have to go there. And, just slap some more enemies, I guess. Moving on to Act 2, which I call the PeePeePooPoo Place. The PP... It's the sewers, alright? Good, let's move on. Now moving through the the sewers, we realize, okay, there's a lot of water here, obviously, and it also slows us down. It also gives us the debuff wetness. No, I do not want to hear any dirty jokes in the comments, because wetness is a debuff. Alright, moving on. We also have some flying enemies, which are kind of annoying because we can't really properly hit them yet. But moving also forward, we get some zombie characters, of course. And then we find some anime cheerleader zombie girl. Those pesky anime zombie girls. Just so annoying. Also, apparently, she has, I think, stomach problems because she likes to throw up some stuff. After getting rid of her, you also have to be careful because she explodes. So something is wrong with her stomach. She throws up, she explodes. I knew that G Fuel is just toxic for your body. Well, there goes a sponsorship, I guess. I've also been using the dagger, which probably wasn't a good idea because the next enemy was kind of like little weird claws that come out of her. Very dangerous, very difficult. So I think a long-ranged weapon is probably a good idea. And funny enough, we do find a long-ranged weapon in the next room, but it also has poison on the ground. So my brain was like, yo, poison can burn. So why don't I burn it? For some reason, I just didn't throw a fireball. The thing is though, even if I would have thrown a fireball while standing, it doesn't work. So the game actually wants you to crouch down and then shoot a fireball. I did this later in my playthrough, just not at this one time, which probably was pretty bad because I don't know what the items even are in this room. I didn't even go back doing this puzzle for a variety of reasons, but, it's fine. I'm sure we will get better weapons. Moving forward, we also meet a ghost character. So apparently she also doesn't really remember anything and also needs our help to open a door. Apparently her friend, I think, was in there. So to try to help her out, we go through the next areas and meet slime enemies, which also is quite difficult because we're constantly wet and in water, so we're slowed down. So it's kind of an interesting fight, because these slime girls or slime enemies are not as difficult, or, well, let's say not as easy as normal slime enemies, but are also not incredibly difficult. Either way, moving ahead, now using a different weapon, having a little bit more range, also a little bit more damage. We are just getting rid of all the enemies, no big deal, and we get our key, opening the door and letting the ghost girl in. But I think she now realizes, well, this was, I think, where she died, sadly, and not a happy ending. But now we also realize there's a person called Lami, so we might see Lami soon. Still, we grabbed some items, read a journal, and move on. We also realize we get a swimsuit that I then try on. And yes, the swimsuit does change your visuals. So the swimsuit changes our appearance, but not the leather armor that I bought earlier. I think I know where the priorities are now. This is something I personally don't like, where it's some armor changes you and some armor don't. I think in MMOs it's very common to do this. As someone who comes from Path of Exile, I kind of just want everything to change me or nothing, okay? So I wish they would have taken their time to actually give her leather armor, because that would have been cool. Still, it's an anime game, you know, it's from Japan, so of course the priorities are on a little bit more on the looter side, of course. Okay, moving on, whatever. You know, not a deal breaker. We get a couple more items, a couple more things, and find a new blue slime girl that has new attacks. And we have to kind of fight a little bit more in the closer combat. No big deal. Then, of course, we have our fire ability, open the path, a new bridge. But I do want to explore on the side the little area where I can roll through. So I do find a little spider, a new enemy, and a couple new items, and even one of them is the Amulet of Life, which actually gives us passive healing, or at least, you know, regenerate 1 HP, but we also have minus 40% max life. So this is the very first time that we see, okay, there is passive regeneration in the game, but you do have to be careful, otherwise you'll just die anyways, because you have minus 40 max life. So I kind of like that. Either way, moving forward, we find, you know, big spider enemies that spawn smaller ones, then more slime girls, a little tease about a treasure chest that we just barely can't get to because we have to come from the other side. Typical, like, Metroidvania kind of thing, where backtracking kind of exists, and or you have to, like, go a little bit to the side and not the main path to find certain items, which I kind of like, you know, it's obviously, like, if everything would be on the main path, that would be a little bit too samey. Now, this is the one moment where I realized, okay, this game is actually kind of cool, because so far, I kind of enjoyed the game, but it wasn't really like, it wasn't clicking anything, you know, there was nothing like, wow, okay, this is amazing. Besides the visuals are pretty goddamn clean. But this one moment where I throw a poison thingy into the water, poisoning the water, and just passively killing the slime girls, I'm like, this is genius. And the cool thing is, because I grabbed an item earlier that negates poison effects and even heals me when I would be poisoned, or when I'm in water and the water is poisoned. It just, everything just clicked, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be interesting. Because if this continues on for like a longer period of time, this could become really sick. Meeting Beatrice again, she appears and is like, oh, you gotta be careful, something is ahead of you, you know, you prepare yourself. So, of course, we get a save point and a teleporter, so potentially you could go back, explore a little bit more, get a little bit more powerful, or maybe get more health potions, mana, MP potions, etc. But we are absolute chads. Jump in. Well, technically I throw a poison bottle in there, you know, to poison the water, obviously, because now I know this is a thing. Equip the amulet or a thing to make me immune to it, and we meet Lami. Sadly, she gets attacked by slimes. Well, not technically. The slimes appear behind her and they attack us. We, of course, do quick work with these slimes, because they constantly take damage from the poison water. We attack them 1 or 2 times with our sword that does, like, I think 6-7 damage, and they're gone. And sadly, Lami didn't like that. She ain't looking too happy about what we just did, because she's part slime girl, I guess, now, or she became some sort of monster and is kind of connected to them. So she attacks us. So this is the first boss that we meet. And we actually do quick work of her because, well, poisoned water, we do good damage, boom, boom, bam. And she's a giant slime girl now. What is happening? So now she's a big slime girl with 2 massive fists as twin tails. Actually cool design. Technically, she's still in the poisoned water, so she constantly takes like 1 damage with our 8 damage or whatever from our, melee attack. We're doing quick work of her, quite an easy boss fight, because I thought it's gonna be very difficult, this game, but it seems to be quite easy, so I was happily surprised by this. Now, we're getting a very important item, which are striped panties. Oh, sure, okay. So actually, that's a unique item, you could kind of say. So it's a very important item that give you a passive. Some give you health, I think some give you mana, some give you another slot in your, another armor slot. So quite important to actually have those, but of course you only get them from bosses. And with Beatrice helping us out of the little area that we're in the boss arena, and telling us, I don't know, you did a good job, Pog Uwu, we move on. Moving on to Act 3, that I call Dungeons, Orcs and Goblins. That could be a game title. We quickly find ourselves with another character, which is Sadora. Something about the writing that she has, or how she speaks in the game, was a little bit too difficult to me. I don't know why, I just kind of ignored what she said. Either way, the one thing I remember that she told me is, do not open those treasure chests. Don't open them. And I'm like, all right, I will definitely do that. Yes. Moving to the next room, we find another character, which is Rosie, with a big-ass cleaver, and apparently some meat in her other hand. She throws that, kills the goblin that apparently was running away from her, and she eats the meat of goblins, I guess. Or orcs. And apparently she has a very big tummy now. Kind of like me after eating döner. Moving ahead, I think I lost about like 50 IQ because I got hit by a trap, a very obvious trap, 2 times in a row. That also gave me burning, so not the smartest thing to do, but, okay. And then I moved back and opened the chest, cause screw you, lady. It also gave us a runestone that I use much later, which I think gives us something around like magic and spell damage and stuff like this, so pretty cool. But we also see that Sadora is now gone, so there's something happening. Using the elevator and going forward, we see a new goblin that throws a bottle, and I think that's also an oil bottle. So technically, if he throws the oil bottle and then another enemy does fire damage, we would start burning, which isn't good. I know. Shocker. We also find ourselves with Boris, a very friendly goblin merchant that actually can talk to us. Or talks to us overall, because apparently every goblin can talk in this game, but they just don't. Otherwise, the Dark Lady, or I think also Rosie, kills them. Something along those lines. But he's like, nah dude, screw that. What an absolute Chad. Sadly, this Chad gets blasted from Beatrice. Then we talk a little bit more with Beatrice, save and move forward and see, oh, there's a snow area now that I briefly explored, but actually kind of ignore very quickly after finding an enemy with a fat sword that starts putting bleed on me, and I was not able to counteract this because I didn't have an HP potion, and most of my healing was over time. But the bleed was too strong and actually took me out. Dead. Being reborn thanks to the statue, we move to the other side, to the right, and find some harpy enemies that are quite easy, and also drop roasted chicken. That's a bit weird, either way. Astarte is now the new character that we meet, a demon girl archer character. She just talks about apparently really liking harpy chicken or roasted chicken. She eats that, she loves the taste of that, and our character is obviously like, wait a second, but they're looking human, isn't that wrong or something like along those lines, right? And she's like, nah. Moving to the next area over the bridge, the goblin is quickly dealt with, way too easy. And then we suddenly find a Bobby Russo. Yes, I googled this. I kind of underestimated those. I was trying to get in some damage sometimes, but obviously not a good idea. Gotta be a little bit careful about these. Moving up and left, we find a puzzle room that I think took me way too long, because it's the easiest bloody puzzle, I think, in this entire video game. Still, back and forth, we get our loot, which is HP Absorption Orb. I completely ignored some items that I picked up, definitely this one, but later on you will see why this one spell is quite busted. Having underestimated the Babirusa enemy again, and I die of bleeding again. So I had to replay most of this, not a big deal, you know, a little bit of a time loss of course. But moving forward, we find another character, which is Kana. And she instantly comes across as very weird. And if you're thinking, wow, Daniel, you're very judgmental today. She was talking about, she loves the feeling of cutting things with her katana, you know, slicing through people, you know, the flesh just... I'm like, what the what is happening? Either way, we go straight ahead, find ourselves with some succubus or like demon enemies. They have red skin, they're demons in my eyes, right? We find the katana and instantly bring it back to her. She's very happy. We got the key, we're able to move on, etc, etc. And we find ourselves in a little bit of like a hub of the goblins and partially orcs. Because now we find more goblins and also new goblin enemies that ride the Babirusa. Nice little twist, nice little challenge, you know, dealing with those because they also have a throwing hammer that apparently does lightning damage. So it's not only a bottle that does lightning damage and you can throw, it's also hammers, so great. Going back and forth and also trying my best to actually use the oil bottle that I got and the fire wand. I'm now able to ignite the ground very easily, you know, dealing with the big enemy from kind of a far away because they just stand there and die in fire. It's pretty cool. I then find a contraption that shoots fireballs that does a ton of damage. I don't, you know, I'm not abusing this at all, you know, hell no, I won't do this. Either way, moving forward, I then have a little fight against the big orc, like a real way, you know, properly doing it. No, not really. So I was abusing at this point an item that we got earlier, I don't even know where anymore, which gives me +1 mana passively. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. And this is kind of where I started using abilities, especially range abilities like the Firebolt, a lot more often because it's just damn good. Not only does it good damage, it also burns the enemy, or I think it has a chance. So I kind of abused that for some time. Now, having gone through this area and I think some side areas that are not necessary to talk about, we find ourselves with, oh my good Tommy mommy, awooga. Oh my, oh, give me a, holy moly, that's... Okay, I'm good again. Jesus Christ. I'm back again. Cool, I'm completely wet now. This was a great skit, Daniel. Ignoring Dommy Mommy character right now that could crush me whenever she wants, we also equip a couple items, or at least, you know, get a couple better weapons, better than the Zweihänder, which is just way too slow and, like, deals good damage, but just not worth it, especially for the upcoming boss fight, which is the girl we found earlier, Rosie, and she doesn't care. She's very aggressive, she leaps towards you, she throws the meat thingy. She was quite a challenge, so going back and forth for I think a couple minutes, dying multiple times, I finally got her. You know, she has a goddamn second face, for Christ's sake. And now she turns into Hulk. That's great. That's awesome. Sweet, perfect. I guess don't eat goblin or orc meat, because apparently that could happen to you. This took multiple tries to figure out, you know, her patterns. Then she also sometimes eats the goblins from above, you know, healing herself back up. And you're like, oh, Christ's sake, I was so close, you know. I was also starting to realize, okay, it's not worth keeping all the items if I can just spam them anyways and can rebuy things. Money or gold there isn't really a lot of it, but you can still sell the items you don't want and make gold and buy other stuff. Either way, I was using coffee to power up my spell damage, using MP potions a lot to instantly get my mana back so I don't have to wait for it. I was constantly eating stuff to constantly, you know, get life back, HP potions. I used everything. I used even sometimes the fire resistance thingy. So the fire that I put on the ground, or at least the oil, and then ignite it with my firebolt. I used a lot of different techniques, right, to kind of burst her down as quickly as possible, because fire is just really good. First phase done, second phase also done, and we are finally able to... She has a third phase now, but no big deal. She's crying, she's very sad. And we sadly have to get rid of her. And with another firebolt and a proper sword swing, she goes down. Dommy Mommy comes back and says to us, wow, human amazing, hell yeah we are. Now can you crush me? Either way, with the striped bra, we now get 10 HP and can move on. In the fourth act, which I call the Bonerific Palace, we meet Boris once again. He tells us that apparently he sees us for the first time, and we've never seen each other, but we obviously saw him. So it's a little bit of a little teaser. So apparently he respawns or something, but loses his memories maybe, or maybe he's just acting. So there's a little bit of a story going on, like a little side plot or side thingy. I'm not gonna go too much into the story because I can barely remember it, so you have to experience it yourself. But moving on, of course he gets blasted again, you know, that's kind of the ongoing joke. Sadly, he dies again, rip. And we find a new character that appears, or at least, you know, appears blurry. That's kind of like me when I take off my glasses. Yuri, a character, we don't really know what she does, but she tells us, do not go further, you know. But our character isn't dumb. Because we just say, but you're a ghost, right? She's like, yeah. So we could just walk through you. She's like, yeah. So you can't stop me. So her not being able to stop us and just telling us don't, and, you know, we're gamers. I don't stop. We just go. I move forward and find myself against skeletons that, dear God, they are pretty difficult now. Not because of their health or damage they do, but the one enemy with a shield that blocks my firebolt. I think I had a total of 5 IQ because I just constantly threw my firebolt at him, and I was like, why does this not work? Apparently, or I'm guessing you should just use other abilities and not the firebolt, so maybe the lightning ability or the ice ability that I kind of ignored for the majority of the playthrough. Moving on ahead and finding some side areas and side puzzles that you can do to connect old areas with the new area that you're just in. Kind of a cool way to, you know, backtrack. Then after going through some necromancer magic kind of guy, we find ourselves in... Are you hearing this? Did I just join a rave party? What's going on right now? So apparently there are some fan zombie girls, I don't know. Even though I didn't go back, was a nice little surprise seeing some sort of like rave party or the music and the lighting going on in a skeleton kind of area. I was like, okay, you know, nice surprise. Moving on ahead, going through some puzzles, probably the worst jumping platforming puzzles I've experienced in this game. Probably because something that the game doesn't tell you, but it kind of makes sense if you think about it, is the leather armor I'm wearing gives me reduced movement speed. That means you also jump less. I don't know if you jump less horizontally or vertically, but your jumps are definitely worse. If you need to platform, you should probably take off the leather armor or the other armor we get in the future, which reduces our, I think, movement speed even more. So just be aware of that. Moving forward, we find Yuri and she reveals herself to us. Our character is instantly like, wow, you look very cute. And she's totally like that face and is like, I don't take compliments. I don't care what you say. Okay, the fight was pretty cool, pretty nice visuals, and also quite surprised how difficult it was. I think I was not really taking her seriously for most of the time, and so I died many times, and kind of also ignored getting hit by her, which then gives you some sort of confusion debuff, so it reverses, or yeah, I think it reverses whatever your controls, and you're like, oh man, after many tries, we finally get her down, you know, easy clap. Whoops, never mind, you know, second phase. Second phase wasn't too difficult, definitely added a lot more projectiles, but they were very easy to dodge, a laser, and also some homing missiles kind of thing. Not that difficult, kind of easy. The enemies she spawned though, quite annoying, because we don't really have a way to properly deal with range enemies. Then you might be thinking, well, firebolt. Well, if you shoot the firebolt against an arrow, it kind of like nothing happens, right? The arrow doesn't hit you, but your firebolt also doesn't hit the enemy. So you repeat this 2 more times and then you have no mana anymore. So They gotta be a little bit careful with that. By the way, this also works with a couple other projectiles like her flaming skulls and a couple other magic abilities that enemies have, so, you know, you can't just spam Firebolt and be done with it, right? It's a little bit difficult, which is absolutely fine, which of course should be the case, because if there's one ability that can do everything, would be a little bit annoying. Well, technically there might be one very soon. Sadly, she goes down and we defeat her, she turns into a skeleton, I guess dies, and we get her wand, and also I think Yuri's skull, which gives us 10 maximum MP, and with the staff, we also passively regen mana, so now we actually regen 2 mana per second, or I think 2 mana every 1.5 seconds, so we're starting to become the mage we always meant to be. Unless you're not a mage kind of guy, then you're screwed. Memes aside, back when we fought Rosie, there were actually gloves that give you more attack speed, so this is probably something you want if you want to focus more on melee. With this finished, we move on ahead to the next act. The garden. It's green. That's it. We instantly find some notes about some character that mentions that apparently some insect characters are copying her and they're using bow and arrow and stuff like this, and kind of teases you towards the next boss fight or towards the next character. Similar to Lami, kind of, how she kind of, I guess, liked slimes or kind of was interacting with them and then turned into a slime, so maybe that's happening again. Spoiler. Okay, moving on. We found ourselves against some plant enemies and a harpy. The harpy we already killed before. Not a big deal, you know, easy peasy, but we find the plant character, which is a little bit difficult because it also blocks our firebolt. And now it becomes very annoying, you know, getting to these enemies if they constantly block our projectiles. Now I figure out what the heck HP absorption orb is. It absorbs HP. I know, what a shocker, you know. Good job, Daniel, using your 2 brain cells right now. No, memes aside, it's a lot better than this. Not only does it take the HP from the enemy and gives it to you, it works on multiple enemies at the same time. And as you can later see in the footage, you can off-screen enemies. Like enemies 3 platforms above you somehow get damaged by this thing, because it just homes onto the next enemy and just sucks them dry. That sounds wrong. Incredibly good, but moving forward, we meet Boris again, and he's like, oh my god, thank you for helping me to get over this bridge. I think I'm good. Wait, I'm having a bad feeling about this. You know, thinking he's gonna die again. Then Beatrice doesn't appear, but apparently some other random goblin that shoots him and he dies again. So, I guess, KO again? Moving on ahead, we find 2 more enemies. One is a bee character that tries to hit us. Lots of these enemies give you a debuff most of the time that I kind of ignored talking about because it doesn't really matter too much. But gotta be careful about this. And we find the bow and arrow character that looks similar to a human. Also, we find Astarte again, which gives us a side quest of finding 6 chicken, you know, the heartbeat chicken thingy. But I also ate a lot of them previously, so I didn't have 6 anymore. Oops. I did do this quest later on, which gives us a multi-shot bow. Pretty cool, but every bow does like 3 damage, so technically it does 9 damage. And it's a projectile that needs to fly through the air. And I could just, you know, hit the enemy with 8 damage instantly with an axe and repeat it very quickly. So didn't feel really worth it, but maybe there's a way to make the bow even stronger. Also moving past the Mandragora or whatever it's called, you know, the screaming enemies from Harry Potter. JK, I think they're just from some other lore, but I know them from Harry Potter, you know, sue me, I don't know. We move on towards the next big boss fights, which is Jun. Jun is the character that we read the journals of, so that's her apparently. We quickly realize, though, either she has been changed, transformed, because she doesn't really look human. She uses now bow and arrow, and I quickly realize, oh, okay, this is, I think, partially either where the development time really came to a halt, or the developer either didn't have more ideas to make these boss fights interesting. Because now I can literally stand still, jump perfectly, dodge all the arrows, and just here and there, you know, with some attacks roll a little bit. It was an extremely easy fight, And especially if you then use the Yuri staff on top of the item that gives you MP regen, you'd constantly have spells ready to go, HP absorption orb, and all this stuff. It was a really easy fight, and I quickly realized, that wasn't really a good boss fight. I think more could have been done there, but of course, game development, you know, difficult, especially boss fights can be very difficult. And then after the boss fight, we see Jun's corpse, sadly, so we clearly fought some imitation, not her real self. And she died apparently because they got way too powerful, way too fast, and there were probably way too many of them, and she just couldn't deal with it anymore. So a sad ending to a character, and also the act. Moving on to the next act, the Maid, the Sausage, and the Demons. If you're wondering, sausage, excuse you what? It will all make sense soon. Just keep on watching. Now, moving forward, we find Kana's journal, which was the katana girl earlier that we helped out. You know, that loves slicing things. It's great. Yes. Perfect. Awesome. Moving on, we find Sadora. You know, the lady we found very early. I think in Act 1 or 2. I think it was right after maybe the sewers. And we instantly kill her. Because she wanted to kill us. Because we opened the treasure chests. But she was very weak. So if you don't want to kill her, right, and probably have a different ending, because the game has, I think, a lot of endings, it would be very interesting what type of items you get from her, or something different. Maybe she doesn't give you anything, and maybe the ending itself is the reward to not opening the treasure chests, which, keep in mind, gave us HP absorption orb much earlier in the goblin area. So it's a give and take, I guess. Not a new enemy, because we saw them earlier, which are the demon girls. And now I realized, wait a second, fire? And it says immune. So what would be the opposite of fire? Ice or frost. So I was using that ability and quickly saw, oh yeah, this does way more damage against them. It's a very good ability. It's not a projectile anymore, so it's a little bit difficult to hit him, because it's always a fixed distance from you where you like kind of explode the ground. So it's a little bit difficult to do that, but I'm sure we can use that sometimes, I guess. But we also find Sadora's area, or like treasure area, and quickly grab all the money and just, you know, getting all that cash, all that sweet gold. Right next to the room, I go up the elevator and probably find the most annoying enemy in the entire video game. Dear God. So this succubus enemy has like multiple layers. First of all, instantly goes invisible. Quite annoying. I mean, you can partially see it, you know, it's invisible, you know, like in video game invisible, let's be honest. Still, it's kind of difficult, especially later on when you have the rain effect and, you know, everything has like overlays. So it's a little bit difficult to see her. Then she hits you and completely like blurs out the edges next to your character, to the edge of the screen. And you're like, I'm blind, I cannot see anything, right? Next problem, apparently I think she also like poisons you, or maybe like suddenly you bleed, and god damn it. Very difficult enemy, be very careful. Or what you can just do is use an HP absorption orb, and it goes through the ground, like I said previously, you know? It off-screens characters. It's not busted, it's totally fine. Totally not abusing this. You know, we move forward, hit some enemies, you know, get some loot and stuff, and oh my. I'm sorry. She tries to find her master's sausage. Right. Also, her name is Lusty. You know, I'm just gonna let you imagine the rest here. Goddamn furries invading my video games now. God damn it. Memes aside, apparently she needs a sausage, which is an item that another maid stole. The other maid is in the next room, and that enemy is probably more difficult than the final boss. It's a robotic maid that shoots homing missiles, multiple by the way, that have insane knockback on top of a lightning shot thingy when you get too close. I died, I think, easily 10 times, I think. It was ridiculous. But abusing Fireball and coffee and mana potions and everything that I can to constantly hit her kind of off-screen-ish, I got it. I dealt with it. It was done. I was like, okay, I'm getting a little bit annoyed now. but I'm still enjoying myself, to a degree. So we bring back the sausage to Lusty, and she says, juicy and supple. Yes, this is definitely my master sausage. Cool, so we get a maid uniform that, surprise, surprise, the leather armor and all the other armors didn't do anything to our appearance. Of course the maid uniform changes our appearance to be a maid. I'm surprised. Moving forward through a couple areas with another couple difficult enemies, I then backtrack a little bit and find myself a treasure chest, and in there is a gemmed magic wand, and because we're already focusing on magic and all the abilities, I just used it because more damage and also regen, pretty sweet. And then there is this one puzzle that I did. It's not bad, but it also isn't good. So the TLDR is move anvil to the left. The problem is, it's not a consistent stream of laser or something that you then shoot over to push it. It's just constantly hit, hit, shoot. Hit, hit, shoot. So it's like, it's really annoying, and having to do this like 12 times in a row, and I'm like, oh my god, please, why? I guess this one room was kind of like a, alright, we gotta do something here, right, to change things up. Otherwise it's just monster, 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 monster. It gets a little bit boring, I get it. But it's like, was this the best room to add, really? Especially because you know what happened then? The next area is really difficult, at least it was to me, and I died. Yes, I had to repeat this goddamn puzzle. Imagine for people who die 5 times. They will stop playing the video game, I'm damn sure. But we did it. We got past it, past the difficult enemies, to the next areas, and we find Kana, which apparently is a succubus or demon thingy, I don't know. And we actually quickly kill her because I was realizing, wait a second, ice or frost is really good against them, right? I have a frost staff or whatever it's called, and I was like, let's use that. That apparently does really good damage because it constantly swirls around. I mean, you can see it anyways. It swirls around like frost projectiles and they can hit multiple times over a period of time. And I'm like, this is a little bit busted. So I was completely abusing that and actually got her down very quickly. I think even first try. All right, we did it. Oh, there's a second boss phase. For Christ's sake, man. What is this? Sekiro anime waifus die twice? This was actually a pretty cool fight visually, especially with like her big ass swords. But she also went down, I think, with the first try. Of course, a lot of healing in between, you know, spamming things. And sadly, she also cries while she's going down. And we move on. The last act, the BEEG plot twist. I'm not gonna go too much into the story here, but apparently we are not real. We are actually created by Beatrice. We're some sort of specimen, some created thing. And apparently from what I roughly gathered is there were other summoned creatures. We weren't summoned. The others were summoned, like they got isekai'd, we weren't. And apparently became Yuri and Jun and Kana and all these people that we then killed to apparently make the Dark Lady stronger. So the summoned ones were actually were summoned here to defeat the Dark Lady, and we just killed them, which technically made the Dark Lady more powerful. So the followers that we killed weren't really followers, and Beatrice is actually a follower of the Dark Lady. So we fell right into her trap. So we were pretty much a tool for her to make her and of course her Dark Lady stronger, or at least, you know, don't need to bother with like, you know, little peons, right? I will create something that will fight those peons. She then teleports us to the last area with a variety of items and a lot of bones and skulls there. So clearly, I guess we weren't the only one maybe that got this far, or who knows. I'm sure, you know, somewhere in the lore, in the journals, you can probably read through it. And we then find other specimens that are quite difficult. They do a lot of damage, and one enemy, especially the one that shoots poison arrows, has a very nasty poison debuff that lasts, I think, 15 seconds. Very dangerous, gotta be very careful about that. And of course, some enemies just are absolutely Pepega small brains, and you can just stand there with your HP absorption orb and just kill them slowly. No big deal. After some platforming and dodging and weaving through some fireballs, we then move towards the final boss fight. Having killed all those peons, the preparations apparently are finished and ready to summon the Dark Lady. And god damn, how should I focus on the gameplay with those two things bouncing around? This fight was overall okay. Visually, very cool. Love it. I think most fights are very good visually. Just gameplay-wise, something is usually lacking. And this boss fight was like fine. She has like 2 attacks, I guess. You know, just the sword hitting me or something, and maybe the sword hitting you in another way, and then just summoning those necromantic mage kind of enemies. And I'm like, sure, you know, no big deal there. But we died the first try, of course, as always with most boss fights, right? So right next to the save file to the left, or the top left, there's another area with another specimen, you know, the poison arrow girl. And we find a vending machine that allows us to buy an amulet of poison that apparently lets you stack poison on bosses. So I think for the poison characters, or for people who want the poison build, I think that would be perfect. But I didn't use that, just moved on and was like, hey, this is potentially the final boss, right? And I have a ton of items because, as mentioned, I'm a hoarder. So I just spammed and fired everything. After having fired everything and used a ton of potions and everything else just to be able to spam a lot of stuff, the final boss just went down real easily. Now Beatrice is like, wow, you did incredible. I'm surprised. We kind of want to fight back and try hitting her, but of course that doesn't work because she created us. So obviously she probably had some magic going on where I cannot get damaged by my specimen. That is not possible. So Beatrice just disappears and kind of leaves us in this arena, and we're stuck. And we're gonna die here. There is no way. Boris is back! Let's go! So Boris helps us out and kind of tells us, you know, even though there's no real thing you need to do now or no new quest and you aren't really a real human being, that doesn't mean you can't enjoy life. Sometimes it's just nice to eat good food, sleep, and, you know, that's it. You know, that's fine. Actually, a very wholesome ending. And yeah, after some credits, we also find out that there is a witch mode, a boss mode, and a variety of other stuff, and even a gallery of all the credit scenes. There are a lot more characters that you can potentially try and go through the game, because the game isn't really long. I played like 3.5 hours, but I also didn't feel like wanting to play more. I know it sounds a little bit negative here, as a little negative aftertaste, but I just was kind of done with the game. I'm sure I would probably enjoy certain characters, but I was like, what I played was fine. I enjoyed my time, the 3.5 hours. I enjoyed the music, the visuals, the sound effects, everything. I'm just kind of done. I'm not really a fan of these games doing a New Game Plus, which technically I think this isn't, but also like, you can now play through the same, literally same game with the same character and nothing has changed beside your character and how you attack. And I'm like, do I really want to do that? Kind of no, unless the world is impeccable. So overall, I would recommend playing Lost Ruins. It's definitely a game that is unique. Especially visually, I think I've never seen an 2D indie game that, like, displayed that way. It also has, I guess, an interesting story if you want to go through that and actually read a little bit of the lore bits, maybe unlock the variety of endings, and also want to play through it with different characters now. But for me, I kind of finished it after 3.5 hours, and with, I think, a price tag of like, I think over $10 or whatever it was, it's difficult for me to recommend it, to be honest. I can't really recommend it when it comes to the hours you get out of the game if you just play through it once. But if you play through it multiple times, I'm sure you get your money's worth. I'm happy I played this game. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. And as always, please subscribe and like and blah, blah, blah. You know, the typical algorithm, YouTube, blah, blah stuff. Let me know in the comments down below if you played the game yourself, how you enjoyed it. As mentioned in the intro, if you enjoyed this type of video, please let me know also down below. I would really love to know if this is just something you want more of with every game that I play and enjoy myself. Alright, I am going now to bed. Bye-bye.